Welcome to my channel. Here is top stories of the week. Iran summons a Swiss diplomat over the U.S. seizure of Iranian crude oil from a ship that sat for months off Texas 2. Iran has summoned the chargé d'affaires of the Swiss embassy in Tehran to voice its strong objection over the U.S. seizing an Iranian oil tanker that has been sitting for months offshore Texas, the AP reported on Monday. Since the 1979 crisis with U.S. hostages at the embassy in Tehran, Switzerland has acted as the country looking for U.S. interests in Iran. The oil tanker, Suez Rajan, was suspected of carrying Iranian crude oil. It has offloaded the crude near Texas, the AP reported last week, adding the cargo was offloaded on another tanker. The U.S. seized the Suez Rajan in April this year, prompting quick retaliation from Iran, which seized a Chinese-owned, Turkish-operated tanker that was loaded with crude for delivery to Chevron. Iran claimed that the tanker collided with an unidentified Iranian vessel just hours prior to its seizure, with several crew members reportedly falling overboard while others were left injured. The tanker then fled the scene and ignored radio calls for 8 hours before a court ordered its seizure. The Suez Rajan, according to an FT report from June, had received a license from the U.S. Treasury Department to import Iranian crude into the United States. Its cargo is some 800,000 barrels of crude and, per an unnamed former member of the Biden administration, its arrival in Texas was likely the result of a deal that got struck between the administration and the owners and operators of the vessel. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani said today that Tehran expressed its strong objection to the seizure. The remarks come at a particularly sensitive moment in U.S.-Iranian relations. The two countries are negotiating over 5 Iranian Americans being held in Tehran, billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets, the supply of Iranian drones to Russia, and a broader military buildup in the Gulf. Why did Iran seize a U.S.-bound oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman? Tehran, Iran and the United States have again found themselves on opposite sides as they provided contradictory accounts of events that led to Tehran's seizure of an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. Iran's state television on Friday showed footage of the country's Navy commandos boarding the Marshall Islands flagged tanker Advantage Suite in a helicopter operation a day earlier. Tehran, Iran and the United States have again found themselves on opposite sides as they provided contradictory accounts of events that led to Tehran's seizure of an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. Iran's state television on Friday showed footage of the country's Navy commandos boarding the Marshall Islands flagged tanker Advantage Suite in a helicopter operation a day earlier. The Turkish-operated, Chinese-owned tanker entered the Gulf of Oman after moving through the Strait of Hormuz and was reportedly bound for Houston, Texas, carrying Kuwaiti crude oil for U.S. energy firm Chevron Corp. Iran said the tanker collided with an unidentified Iranian vessel hours before its seizure, leading to several crew members falling overboard and going missing and others getting injured. The tanker then fled the scene and ignored radio calls for 8 hours before its seizure based on a court order, the Iranian army said. We repeatedly called on the vessel to stop so we can conduct a more comprehensive investigation, but there was no cooperation, Mustafa Tahadini, deputy for operations at the Iranian Navy, told state media. The Middle East-based U.S. Navy Fifth Fleet had said Iran's actions constituted a violation of international law and called on Tehran to immediately release the tanker. Iran's continued harassment of vessels and interference with navigational rights in regional waters are a threat to maritime security and the global economy, it said, adding this was at least the 5th commercial vessel taken by Iran in the past 2 years. On Friday, the Reuters news agency reported the seizure of the vessel came as a response to the confiscation of an oil tanker by the U.S. in an effort to enforce its unilateral sanctions on Tehran. The report said the Iran-linked tanker was the Marshall Islands-flagged Suez Rajan that had a Greece-based manager and was last reported to be positioned near southern Africa before being seized several days prior to the taking of the Advantage Suite vessel by Iran. There are precedents for such tit-for-tat moves, with the U.S. trying to confiscate a cargo of Iranian oil near Greece last year, prompting Tehran to seize 2 Greek tankers and hold them for months. The Supreme Court in Greece ultimately ordered the cargo returned to Iran, and the Greek vessels were also released. Washington imposed its harshest ever sanctions on Iran, which include a major focus on impeding Tehran's oil sales, after former President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from a 2015 nuclear deal with world powers in 2018. Amid deadlocked efforts to restore the nuclear accord, which put curbs on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions, Iran has been circumventing the embargoes and steadily boosting its oil sales. 12 U.S. senators on Thursday urged President Joe Biden to remove Treasury Department policy hurdles that have impeded the seizure of more Iranian oil shipments in a call that is likely to increase tensions. Denmark plans jail term for burning Quran in public. The Danish government has proposed a ban on setting the Quran alight in public after a series of burnings led to uproar in Muslim countries. Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard said such burnings harmed Denmark and risked the safety of Danes. The planned law will make improper treatment of the Quran or Bible a criminal offense punishable by a fine and jail sentence of up to 2 years. The center-right government said it wanted to send a signal to the world. Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said Denmark had witnessed 170 demonstrations in recent weeks, including the burning of copies of the Quran in front of foreign embassies. Denmark's Pet Intelligence Service has warned that the latest incidents have intensified the terrorist threat. Neighboring Sweden has also seen a series of Quran burnings, and its security service has warned of a worsening security situation. In July, the Swedish embassy in Iraq was set alight by protesters. But both Denmark and Sweden have hesitated to respond to the burnings because of their liberal laws on freedom of expression. Sweden scrapped its blasphemy laws in the 1970s. Copenhagen decided to move after further Quran burnings at the end of July in Denmark and Sweden. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, called on its members to take appropriate action against countries where the Quran was being desecrated. The Justice Minister was adamant the proposed change in the law was not targeting verbal or written expressions or satirical drawings. But he said burning religious texts served no other purpose than creating division and hatred. "It is a cornerstone of our democracy that you have the right to express yourself," said Deputy Prime Minister Jakob Ellemann-Jensen. "You also have to behave properly." Denmark could not stand idly by when such actions had negative consequences for its security, he added. Sweden's Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, said Stockholm would not take the same step as its neighbor, because that would probably require amending the constitution. Justice Minister Gunnar Strömmer told reporters that a decision to review its public order law was the right move. The government wants to change the law to ban gatherings that threaten Sweden's public security. Ministers in Denmark intend to propose changes to the law on the 1st of September and have them passed by Parliament before the end of the year. The ban is expected to be added to a section of the Criminal Code that bans public insult of a foreign state, its flag or other symbol.